The US dollar. It's been the world's reserve currency for over 75 years. It's the backbone of global trade, the lifeblood of international finance, and frankly, it's been resting on that throne of greenbacks for far too long. But could its reign be coming to an end? Now I know what you're thinking. Scott, talking about currencies on a Friday night, couldn't we at least be discussing something exciting like the mating habits of dung beetles? And you'd be right, that is more scintillating. But stick with me because the dollar's dominance is being challenged like never before. We're talking rising economic tensions, shifts in global trade, and enough geopolitical drama to make a telenovela blush. Countries are looking for alternatives, and frankly, who can blame them? It's like watching a tired old boxer clinging to his title, while a bunch of younger, hungrier fighters are lining up to take him down. So buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into the world of international finance, and trust me, it's a lot more interesting than it sounds. We're going to explore the factors threatening the dollar's dominance, the potential contenders vying for its crown, and what it all means for the future of the global economy. All right, let's rewind the clock a bit, shall we? Picture this. It's the aftermath of World War II. The world is basically a giant game of Jenga, with everyone trying to rebuild without the whole thing collapsing. Enter the Bretton Woods Agreement, stage left. This agreement, signed by a bunch of countries who were probably still a little shaky from the whole war thing, basically crowned the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Why the dollar, you ask? Well, at the time, the US was like the rich uncle who always had cash to spare. They had the largest gold reserves, a booming economy, and frankly, everyone else was a bit too war-torn to argue. So, the dollar became the gold standard, literally, pegged to the price of gold. This arrangement worked out pretty well, at least for a while. The dollar became the currency everyone wanted to hold, use for trade, and basically treat like the Beyoncé of the financial world. It was the currency everyone wanted to be seen with. Fast forward to today, and while a lot has changed, the dollar's dominance hasn't really budged. It's still the most traded currency in the world, used in a whopping 88% of global foreign exchange transactions. This dominance isn't just about historical accidents or the US throwing its weight around, although that does help. It's also about the petrodollar system, where oil, that black gold that fuels our modern world, is primarily traded in US dollars. This creates a constant demand for dollars, like a global game of musical chairs where everyone's scrambling for a seat, but there's only one chair for every 10 people. And let's not forget the trust factor. The US has, for a long time, been seen as a beacon of economic and political stability, a place where you could park your money without worrying about it spontaneously combusting. But hold on a second, because this story's about to get interesting. Just like that once popular kid in high school who peaked too soon, the dollar's dominance might not last forever. Remember that whole trust and stability thing we talked about? Well, it turns out that's kind of like a Jenga tower after you've removed a few too many blocks. The US has been, shall we say, a little wobbly lately, from political polarization that makes a boxing match look civil to a national debt that's basically a ticking time bomb. The US isn't exactly radiating an aura of rock-solid reliability these days. And let's not forget the elephant in the room, or rather, the dragon. China, with its rapidly growing economy and its insatiable appetite for, well, everything, is emerging as a serious contender on the world stage. They're like that ambitious new employee who shows up early, stays late, and always seems to have a fresh pot of coffee brewing. China has been actively promoting the use of its own currency, the yuan, in international trade. They're striking deals, signing agreements, and basically laying the groundwork for a world where the yuan is the new kid on the block, and the dollar is that grumpy old neighbor who yells at everyone to get off their lawn. But it's not just China. Countries all over the world are starting to diversify their reserves, hedging their bets by holding other currencies. It's like realizing that putting all your eggs in one basket, even if it's a basket woven from $100 bills, might not be the smartest move. Then there's the rise of digital currencies, those mysterious internet coins that everyone's talking about but no one seems to fully understand. So the dollar is facing challenges on multiple fronts: geopolitical tensions, economic uncertainty, and the rise of new technologies. So the dollar's dominance is being challenged. But who are these brave souls, these financial knights in shining armor who dare to dream of dethroning the king? Let's meet the contenders, shall we? First up, we have the yuan, China's very own currency, with ambitions as big as the Great Wall itself. China has been steadily increasing the yuan's use in international trade. Next up, we have the euro, the currency of the European Union, a major economic powerhouse. And then there's gold, the OG of currencies, a store of value for centuries. And finally, cryptocurrencies, the wild cards of the bunch. Bitcoin, the most well-known, is like that unpredictable friend who might show up with pizza and beer or might accidentally set your curtains on fire. Okay, let's get real for a second. What happens if the dollar loses its grip on global currencies? Will the world descend into chaos? Will cats and dogs start living together? Will we barter for groceries with cans of beans and toilet paper? Well, it's complicated. It depends on how quickly the dollar declines. A slow decline allows time to adjust, like patching a tire. A sudden drop means a bumpy ride. For the US, it could mean higher borrowing costs. The US enjoys low interest rates because everyone wants dollars. It's like being the popular kid who can borrow anyone's homework. But if the dollar loses its luster, interest rates could skyrocket. A weaker dollar could mean reduced global influence for the US. The US benefits from the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. It's like being the head of the student council. But if another currency takes over, the US might find itself on the outside looking in. For the rest of the world, a decline in the dollar's dominance could lead to greater uncertainty in global trade. Right now, the dollar acts as a common currency for international transactions. But if another currency takes over, it could lead to more volatility and instability in exchange rates. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The dollar's facing some stiff competition. It's like showing up to a karaoke bar after Beyoncé's already belted out a show-stopping rendition of Single Ladies. The crowd's impressed, but they're also ready for something new. The alternatives we've discussed, your yuans, your euros, even your shiny gold bars, they all have their own set of issues. It's like choosing between a car with great gas mileage but no air conditioning, a car with a killer sound system but a tendency to break down, and a horse-drawn carriage that smells vaguely of manure. They each have their charms, but none of them are exactly perfect. And let's be honest, the dollar's got staying power. It's like that old comfy pair of jeans you can't bring yourself to throw away, even though they've got holes in the knees and a questionable stain from that time you tried to make your own spaghetti sauce. It's familiar, it's reliable, mostly, and it's woven into the fabric of the global economy. But just because the dollar's been on top for a while doesn't mean it's invincible. Remember Blockbuster Video? Or MySpace? Or those pants with the pockets on the side that were briefly popular in the early 2000s? Seriously, what was that about? The point is, things change. The world is becoming increasingly multipolar, with power shifting away from the United States and towards other countries. So here we are, folks. We've journeyed through the annals of financial history, explored the challenges facing the mighty dollar, and met the contenders vying for its crown. We've discussed the potential fallout of a dollar decline and pondered the future of this iconic currency. Now, you might be thinking, Scott, this has been a wild ride, but you still haven't answered the most important question, is the dollar doomed? And you'd be right, I haven't, because frankly, no one knows for sure. Predicting the future of the global economy is like trying to predict the weather in a hurricane. You can make educated guesses, but ultimately, it's a crapshoot. The dollar's dominance is deeply entrenched, and it's benefited from a system that's been in place for decades. It's like that old comfy armchair you sink into after a long day. Sure, it might be a little worn around the edges, but it's familiar, it's comfortable, and you know what to expect. But the world is changing, and the dollar can't rest on its laurels forever. The rise of new economic powers, the emergence of digital currencies, and the growing desire for a more multipolar world all point to a future where the dollar's dominance is no longer a given. So, what do you think? Could the dollar's reign as the global currency truly come to an end, or is this just another bump in the road? Is the yuan poised to take over? Or will the euro finally get its act together? Will we all be trading in Bitcoin by next Tuesday? Or will we return to the barter system and pay for our coffee with hand-knitted socks? The future is uncertain, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be interesting. Well, there you have it. The US dollar, once a symbol of unyielding power, now facing a midlife crisis of epic proportions. It's enough to make you want to withdraw all your savings in small, unmarked bills and bury them in the backyard. But before you do, remember, panic is rarely a good financial strategy. Unless, of course, you're a bank CEO in 2008, in which case, panic away. The truth is, the future of the dollar is about as clear as a glass of milk after toddlers used it as a paintbrush. We've got geopolitical tensions, economic uncertainties, and enough jargon to make your head spin. It's enough to make you long for the days when the most pressing financial question you had was whether to get fries with that. But hey, at least we're not talking about dung beetles anymore, so there's that. Stay tuned, because the world of finance is anything but boring.